When Dolly Parton was just a fledgling star trying to make it in the 1960s country music scene, she was offered a big break in the form of working with Porter Wagoner on The Porter Wagoner Show. Singing duets with the country singer, Dolly rose to immense fame. Many years into her tenure, she decided she wanted to break out of the male singer's shadow, which he wasn't too happy about. This led to a feud that lasted decades and cost Dolly $1 million, though she eventually forgave her old mentor and boss before his death in 2007. Join Facts Verse as we explore the real reason Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner split for good. In 1967, Dolly Parton started working on The Porter Wagoner Show. The show was already an established hit with country music fans, and Dolly was brought on to replace the show's previous female singer. Fans were initially hesitant to accept Dolly, but grew to appreciate her at the continued insistence of Porter Wagoner. Dolly had released her first album shortly before being hired onto the show and had yet to achieve much fame in the industry. Her gig on The Porter Wagoner Show proved to be her big break, and it was also something that would haunt her for many decades. Once Dolly grew to be too big of a star for the show, Porter Wagoner became angry and tried to stop her from quitting. When he couldn't, he proceeded to sue his former employee, resulting in a decade-spanning feud between the two ex-friends. Towards the end of Dolly's time on the show, Dolly and Porter would get into heated arguments behind the scenes. After Dolly left the show, Porter would slander her in the press, disparaging her at every opportunity. Though Dolly was hurt by her former employer's unkind words, she refused to sink to his level. One of the things Porter attacked Dolly for was her appearance in Playboy magazine, which Porter said wouldn't have flown well with female country singers of the past. In response, Dolly claimed she was never trying to be anyone but herself, and that posing in Playboy made sense for her. Porter Wagoner also claimed during the years of the feud that Dolly was not a trustworthy person in general, and she couldn't even be counted on not to stab her own family in the back. Though Dolly has never had children, she has always seemingly treated her husband well. The two have been together since before she and Porter even met, and they're still together. Though Dolly's husband likes to stay out of the spotlight, it appears the two still have a very loving and exciting marriage. Regarding his trust of Dolly, Porter claimed his mistrust of the singer was the reason he had fired her from the show. Contrastingly, Dolly claimed she wasn't fired but had quit. It remains uncertain which side of the story is true, though both claim to have done their part in stirring the flames of their tumultuous relationship. Dolly had simply outgrown her stature as Porter's female sidekick. Although she may have gone about breaking away from the show with a bit of an ego, she was certainly right in thinking her career would blossom outside the show. Dolly started performing on the show in 1967 and gave her final performance on it in 1974. She then went on to achieve greater stardom than ever as a solo artist and even continued working amicably with Porter Wagoner in a professional capacity for several years, allowing him to produce some of her biggest hits. By the end of the 70s, Porter had found himself less successful than ever and was growing increasingly jealous of Dolly's superstardom. Once Porter's jealousy of his former female apprentice became too much for him to deal with, he took to slandering the stars in the ways we mentioned, as well as suing her for a sum of nearly $3 million. There were numerous reasons Porter felt he was owed the money. These ranged from supposed breaches of contract to extravagant gifts he had given Dolly while she was working on his show. The extravagant nature of these gifts added fuel to the fire for theories that Dolly and Porter were involved in a romantic relationship during their time working together. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. And stick around for more about Dolly and Porter. When Dolly started on The Porter Wagoner Show in 1967, she had done so with the firm conviction that she was only going to remain on the program until 1967. Due to both pressure from Porter himself and simply being happy with her job on the show, she ended up staying for a few years beyond the time she had initially planned. By the time 1974 rolled around, Dolly couldn't take it anymore. She planned her exit from the series, though Porter was still mad about her leaving. Dolly had accepted her role on the show for numerous reasons. For one thing, the gig meant a bigger paycheck than the singer had seen thus far. For another, it was likely going to mean big things for her future as a singer. The show certainly ended up meaning big things for the singer's career as she became a bigger star than ever. Once audiences accepted Dolly for who she was and stopped comparing her to the program's previous singer, Dolly's time on the show blossomed into a decade-spanning career in country music. Dolly was shocked when her former employer and friend sued her for millions of dollars, but Porter claimed it was the only way he could resolve the issue. He claimed to have reached out to Dolly's camp to resolve it more amicably, but the superstar was too hard to get a hold of. Dolly likely would have said no had he asked politely for millions of dollars. The matter was settled out of court, with Dolly agreeing to pay Porter $1 million. He arguably deserved nothing, and many felt that Dolly was giving her former boss more than she really owed him out of respect. For her part, she claimed the $1 million was hard for her to come up with, and she had to pay it in installments. As far as them having an affair, Dolly remains adamant that no such thing ever occurred. According to her, it's common in the country music scene for fans to fantasize and inevitably theorize about male and female artists getting it on behind the stage. However, Dolly claims no such thing ever happened between her and Porter. This comes despite the fact that part of Porter's lawsuit against her involved some incredibly extravagant gifts that seemed more like the kind one would give to a lover than to an employee. Dolly was married at the time she performed on the show to the same man she's married to today. She has famously talked about having a somewhat open relationship with her longtime husband, and Porter Wagoner certainly slept around with as many of his female peers as he could. It stands to reason a male star at the time likely would have balked at the prospect of hiring a female singer who wasn't going to sleep with him. Dolly always referred to Porter as one of the great loves of her life. However, she had many reasons to hold him in reverence even though they weren't romantically involved. Porter had offered Dolly a way into the scene and had also mentored her during her early days on the show. He stuck his neck out for Dolly when audiences didn't initially want to accept her as a replacement, and he also helped produce many of her biggest hits. This is all part of why Dolly ended up agreeing to give Porter $1 million in the lawsuit, and also part of why Dolly forgave him before his 2007 death. When Porter Wagoner died, Dolly Parton was by his side. Along with his family, Dolly sang and prayed as Porter passed away peacefully. Dolly was glad to get the opportunity to put all the bad blood behind them and let things end on a positive note. Although Porter said some terrible things about Dolly during his life, Dolly always refused to sink to his level. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Porter Wagoner was right to sue Dolly Parton for millions of dollars? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.